Hello, gang. Okay, I'm in a new venue in my office, and I've got this microphone that I think is going to work okay. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm trying to make noise in my chair. This is going to be really quick. I only have 3 things to tell you about grammar, usage, punctuation. But first, we should define these terms. I use grammar just as an umbrella term, but what it refers to specifically is the rules that fit our words together into sentences. So when you say something like, I eats good foods, we know that this is not a grammatical sentence, right? Verbs are not being conjugated correctly depending on, and you can break it down, but we don't have to worry about that. As you're all native speakers of the language, you just know grammar. English grammar is just, it's in your bones. You don't have to worry about it. What people worry about is when it gets to usage, which is a whole different thing. Usage refers to sort of standard practices that we all consider when we're putting, when we're using language effectively. So when you say that something is the most unique thing you've ever seen, this is a problem of usage, right? Because unique, it's something is or is not unique. You can't be more or less unique. That's all this stuff is like things you need to figure out based on sort of meanings of words and semantic arguments. Or like, I literally died laughing. Like, no, that's not exactly how literally is being or should be used here. These are usage issues, and most of the stuff that pops up is a usage issue. And then finally, punctuation is another thing that pops up. These, of course, are just the markings, the commas, the apostrophes, everything that we use to show relationships between words and phrases. So when I say grammar, I mean all of it. We'll just lump it all together. So what you need to know, 3 things. 1, is this showing up? Okay. Good writing has nothing to do with proper grammar, or usage or punctuation, all that stuff. It's true. In grad school, I looked at studies. People actually did this with classrooms. They would take 2 classrooms, and one class would learn lots of grammar, and the other class just wrote and didn't learn any grammar on doing it. And at the end of the year, they tested both writing samples, and the class that had all the grammar showed no improvement in their writing style and in their in sort of the quality of the writing showed no improvement, even though it was grammatically correct. And we know this, right? If there's anything I've been telling you all semester, it's that what good writing is good thinking, smart, clear thinking. It's the ideas, it's the creativity going on in your mind, and then the way you can transmit that using language on the page and words, right? You can get it all wrong grammar-wise, but if your thoughts are dull or uninspired, your writing's going to be dull, no matter how good your grammar is. So keep these things divorced in your mind. That said, number 2, poor grammar, usage, punctuation will always, 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 always weaken your writing. And that's also true. Most people don't agree with rule number 1. There's this idea in the culture that if you don't know grammar, then you can't be a good writer. And like I said, it's not true, but most readers believe it to be true. So don't let them disagree with you in this regard. Don't let them think, okay, well, this person doesn't even know their usage rules, so how can I trust their writing? They will do this. Readers want to feel like they're in good hands. They want to read the work of a writer who knows what they're doing. So if you don't care enough to make sure that your writing is polished in this regard, your reader will sense that and say, well, why should we care about reading it if this person hasn't taken the time? So what that means for you is that everything you write and everything you turn in, just print it out here, get it off the screen, and then read it aloud to yourself. You will catch a lot of errors, and you'll hear it in a voice, and you'll see it in a different forum, and you'll say, okay, the whatever errors or sort of stylistic quirks will jump out at you more, and you can attack them and fix them in revision. And then just for purposes of our class, a prevalence of errors will hurt your grade because it'll hurt your authority, and that's one of the things I'll be grading you on. Finally, rule 3, know all the rules so that you know how and when, or rather when and why, to break them. And this is what happens with every time you read about rules and grammar rules. The last rule is always, but break all these rules when you need to. And that's the way it works with writing. There are rules and rules and rules. You could get books like, maybe you've read this or seen this, Strunk and White, The Elements of Style. There's this, the MLA Handbook for Writers of Research Papers. English majors come to know this very intimately. And there's also the great Associated Press Style Book and Libel Manual, which I love, which tells you things like Scotch whiskey is always if you can see this. Scotch whiskey. So it tells you like, okay, that's how you're supposed to spell it and capitalize it. And note that whiskey, when it's Scotch whiskey, has no E, but otherwise, when it's just plain old whiskey, you use the E. All that stuff, the AP style manual is really good to get at. Yeah, anyway, and there's the Chicago Manual of Style. There's all these books, right? And if you want to be a writer and if you want to do really well in writing, read these books. Read them all. It can't hurt you. And so what's important is that then once you have all the rules in you, sort of, and when you've learned them, you can then decide when to break them. And break them you should. And we've read all sorts of stuff that breaks these rules. We'll talk about some of the ways to break rules more on Tuesday and give you some examples. But I just wanted to give you these 3 rules to read as you go into the readings for tomorrow. I'll read this one. And then finally, the big one. So take a look at what Carol Bly says about prose revision and what Ted Kruger says about poetry revision, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday.